Welcome back to Armchair Author Chats. My name is Rita Slanina, your host, and we are having an amazing spring season. I cannot believe it. Season 2 is just amazing, and it would not be complete without our next author. Dale L. Roberts is a self publishing advocate, fitness author, and video content creator. After publishing over 40 titles and becoming a multiple international best selling author on Amazon, Dale started his YouTube channel, Self Publishing with Dale. Dale has cemented his position as the go to authority in the indie author community, and we are so blessed to have him. Let's bring him on right now. Hi, Dale. How are you?
Rita, I'm fantastic. Can I first of all say that you have probably the best podcasting name there is out there, Rita Slanina. Like, how did you plan that? Is this something purposeful, or did you just happen to get married to the right person that it just was just that alliteration? I love it.
Well, it was a born given name, so it's kind of stuck with the rhyming name.
Incredible. I love it.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you. Let's start with your latest book. How would you pitch it in one sentence?
Go buy my book. It's the best there is. Or else.
That's what I would do. You guys, nobody should be sleeping on Dale right now. I'm going to tell you right now.
Yeah.
He is prolific. I could gush all
Yeah.
day. I'm going to let you answer that question.
So my latest book, bestseller book launch plan, is my essential blueprint to launching a bestseller on the Amazon marketplace. I've been doing this for over, 11 years. How crazy is that? That I put this all together into one big thing. Now, I know that was more than one sentence. Give me two sentences on that.
You can have three. It's fine. I'll give you a grievance on that. So what was the spark that set this title in motion? Did it come from real life? A dream, totally unexpected, maybe some followers or fans of yours that gave you some leeway?
Yeah, this all came about from years ago when I actually had first broke into the business. It wasn't all sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns. I struggled for the first 2 years. I would say within about a year to year and a half into the whole process, I ended up hiring a coach that ended up working with me and showing me this exact blueprint. Now, it's changed a little bit because some of the methodologies and strategies and practices are no longer available or effective. So I've been able to kind of tweak that over the years. But after a couple of years in the business, this is what led me to doing the YouTube channels. I ended up getting an interview on 2 different YouTube channels where they were teaching people about self-publishing. Little did I know that those interviews would bring in attention in a different way than I wanted. I was a fitness author at the time. I was not looking to be this person that's a go-to authority in self-publishing. Literally, I was just like, I love writing fitness books. I like publishing them. That's all. Well, that brought in a lot of DMs and emails and everything else. And I was like, let's start this YouTube channel. And when I started that YouTube channel, what I was noticing a lot was a lot of just misinformation and misunderstanding and sometimes ignorance when it comes to getting yourself success or getting some type of traction for your publication. And so I ended up doing an email newsletter. And part of that email newsletter, I would give people my checklist for launching a bestseller. It was called the Bestseller Book Launch Plan. By the way, still have it up. People can still grab it. It's all available. And at one point I looked at this and I'm like, I could write a book about this. And I'm like, I could write a book about this. I'm like, what am I thinking? So that was the long story long right there, where essentially it was just building up enough understanding of my community and what people are looking for and trying to show them, okay, this is exactly what you're looking for. And this is also the realistic and pragmatic approach to this whole publishing business, especially on the Amazon platform.
And it's really great because you actually have quite a few books on the fitness genre. And do you think that played a role in sort of becoming a self-publishing advocate?
I mean, I guess, could you reword the question? I'm not sure how I can answer that one.
Well, because you had experience self-publishing with the fitness books, and then I believe you have a sci-fi book as well. And so, did you trial and error a lot with self publishing and how to be successful in those areas before you started transitioning into more of a self publishing guru?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's the
There's the
G
G
word. You and
word.
I
You
were
and I
cracking
were
up
cracking
before
up.
we
No,
went
I'm
on,
kidding. We
huh?
were joking backstage, you guys. So we're just joking with the guru name, but
I
I
I guess it was not something I ever anticipated I would transition into. I felt like it was a means to an end when I did the YouTube channel. At the time, I wasn't thinking like, hey, I probably should build a YouTube channel for my fitness brand, which I did have something in place, but I didn't take it as seriously. It was because I started doing those videos about self-publishing that I started to do videos and it started getting traction and people were like asking more questions. And so I started doing more videos and I was starting to discover what was bad, what was good, those types of things. So if you were to go back to April 2016, which I don't think any of the videos are available there anymore. I think I might have deleted out of embarrassment the first year of the stuff. I you're essentially learning from a guy that was learning in the process. So, I mean, I was only 2 years into the business. I didn't feel like I knew it all, but I did know enough to make me dangerous and make a full time living of it. And so my thought was, let me go ahead and share this and also be very much transparent of like, hey, I'm in this with you as well. I don't know everything. And in fact, to this day, a lot of people unfortunately think that like, oh, I'm the be all end all. No, no, I'm learning from greats and giants inside this industry. You know, the likes of people like Mark Leslie Lefebvre, Joanna Penn, David Gogren, a lot of these people, I'm soaking up this knowledge as well. I never just stopped learning. And so I think that was been a huge part of why I transitioned over into doing the whole self-publishing education, if you will, and really embracing it. I think it was until 2017 that I saw enough proof of concept that I was like, oh, I could make some money out of this. So I could still do fitness books and I could do this YouTube thing about self publishing and such. It wasn't until 2020 that light bulb goes off above my head. Hey, Dale, why don't you put out some books about self publishing and not just fitness? And by that time, I was burnt out in doing fitness books. If you go back on my backlog, you'll see why. It was a ridiculous amount. I was writing all of the time.
there's quite a few fitness books. Yes, I can see why you got burned out, and you can only cover so many different exercises and things. That I get it. I totally get it. Whereas it feels like self-publishing education is always evolving. It's always changing. Um, a fan of yours myself, constantly refer to some of your videos, especially when Amazon does updates or Kobo or pick your poison, whichever platform you like to use or prefer or don't like to use. Dale really has it figured out where you just dive into it, you learn it, you can show us what it's not going to do for you, and you can show us what it's going to do for you. And I appreciate you for that. And and I know the audience will appreciate that too, because I know a lot of who's watching now are of the self-publishing audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. So writing can be a wild process, as we covered a little bit there. So here's a fun question for you. Do you have any quirky habits, routines, or must-have rituals when working on a book?
I do actually. And the funny thing is, right now I'm fiddling with one. I have to have this. It's like my lucky pen. I don't call it my lucky pen, but I keep it nearby. It helps me cope a little bit. So anytime that I'm writing or whatever, and I need to pause and just kind of gather my thoughts, I will typically sit here and roll and unroll this pen over and over. I'll flip it around in my hand, but that's the quirkiest part. Most often, I wouldn't call this quirky necessarily, but it might be helpful for anybody that's paying attention here. What I would say is when I go into a writing session and I really want to commit, a couple hours to it, maybe even, 3, 4 hours, I will sit down and I will journal for 15 minutes. And I put timer on because when I journal, I could probably journal for 2 hours at a time. But I'll set a timer for about 15 minutes and I will just go and just let it all out. And the nice thing about journals is, Rita, you and I can both agree that no one's ever going to read it. I mean, if they do, I'm going to be dead. It's going to be long past my life, or they're weirdos. That's one of the two. But I will just go with flow of thought.
So well, no.
Right?
Right.
So yeah, I just crank that stuff out. And here's the nice thing is it just primes up my pumps and greases those creative wheels. So that way, when I get behind the dashboard of the actual work that I want to churn out, if you will, yeah, it flows real smoothly. I learned that one from Kevin Tumlinson. He's the former marketing director of Drafted Digital. He has great books out, and one of them was, I think it's called the 24-day author plan or something like that, or 30-day author plan, something like that. But his book is great. When he suggested that, I don't get writer's block often, but I will have a slight blockage, meaning that I'll go a little slower than I normally do. I never just stare at the cursor. I don't understand that. That's not something that happens with me.
That's relatable. I can definitely relate to that. So when you do have that little, let's call it a speed bump or a hiccup, um, how do you push through that? Obviously, you read a little bit of the book, and Tomlinson was very helpful in that. But how else do you do that?
So what I'll do is I prime the pump, do the 15-day journal or 15-minute journaling, excuse me, 15-day journaling. Good Lord. It's like, I'm going to go ahead and do a chapter of a book now.
Be knocking on your door. Your wife's like, are you alive in there?
Right. So
Days.
I do the 15 minutes and I'll go into it and I'm going a lot quicker. Now, if I find myself at a bit of a blockage, sometimes it's a case of maybe stepping back. If I've already written a little bit of the book, I feel like there's a little bit of an edge for me. So if I've got, like, say, the previous chapter, I'll go back by like 10 pages, read from that point and like start editing it a little bit. And that way it just kind of builds up that momentum when I go into that very next piece. But it's rare that I got to do that. I will read typically a page or two before if I've been writing it the previous day. But let's say that there's a bit of a separation between my writing sessions. It's been a week. It's been a month in some instances. I will have to go back 10 pages because I need to kind of figure out where was my mind at. And here's the problem that I ran into with a recent book that I just published called Bestseller Book Launch Plan. I had wrote most of it in 2022. I wrote the rest of it in 2023 and 2024. Well, then it comes to publishing it this year. The problem is I had to go back through the whole thing and edit it all over again because, as you had mentioned, self-publishing business, things change on a regular basis. So I had to go through and do massive revisions. I mean, it was one of those cases of you just look at that manuscript and you start to weep. You're like,
Well, we'll have no weeping. Although I have a question on that. So, on the bestseller book launch plan, what was the most rewarding? And I think we've sort of seen a little bit what the most challenging part of writing that was. Did anything surprise you along the way in publishing this one?
yeah, I looking back, I would say my biggest issue was the separation of me writing it, but it was the environment I placed myself in. When we were going through and editing it, at least I was going through before I got it over to my editor, I noticed like there was just like some negative, it was minor, like negative type thoughts. I wasn't necessarily like beating up things, but it was real like dark. And I'm like, it has to be the environment. And see, I found that I actually wrote most of the book over at one of my favorite restaurants. It's called $2 Radio Headquarters. And my wife and I go up there from time to time. And we went up there to do some writing. And I was sitting in a very hard chair with a hard, rickety wooden table on top of that. And I don't know, I think maybe mentally it was in a negative side of things. I was able to clean it up before it got to the editor for the most part, but she found touches of that as she's like, oh my gosh, Dale, what's going on here? Do we have to send help? What's going on with you? And so, yeah, that was the part that I found most surprising.
This makes sense because in restaurants, here's a fun fact. I don't know why I know this. It could be wrong now, but I don't know. They use dark furniture and dark mood lighting to make you more thirsty and to double down on what you're going to eat. So you'll like eat twice as much. So maybe there's a little bit of sensory projection as well.
That's definitely a good theory for sure. I do know, and I love the restaurant. Haven't written there since, and I now reflecting on it. Of course, I'm like, I doubt I would do it again, just because I just noticed there's a difference between me writing here, where we're talking right now, because this is an environment that I built for myself that uplifts and makes me feel good. All I have to do is just put on this orange shirt. It turns on a trigger for me. By the way, there's another quirky thing for me. I put on an orange shirt, and for whatever reason, I'm all business. Take that orange shirt off.
Thank you for bringing your business game today. I love it. So when
Yeah.
you get into your environment and you have the business shirt on and everything you've created for yourself to write, now does it matter what time of day that would be that you write, or does that not matter? Are you a morning writer, an afternoon writer, middle of the night?
It varies a lot, but I've found that I will usually churn out the most and the fastest at nighttime. For whatever reason, between the time that my wife goes to bed right around 10 p.m. to the time that I go to bed, like so 10 and 3, for whatever reason, I'm on filing on all cylinders. Like my brain's like, hey, blah, 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 let's go ahead and do that. So hey, everybody it can relate, right? It's get that blah, 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 that sound right there. Exactly.
That's my 3 a.m. That's me. Yeah, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
I'm already
When
up
you're
and
trying to
running.
sleep, right?
Yeah, and the husband's like, "What is wrong with you?" Oh no, I gotta get in the office. Things have to happen.
For
So
sure.
publishing can be a roller coaster, as we've discussed. What's your biggest wow or what just happened in your journey so far?
Biggest wow. I mean, my biggest wow is just this whole YouTube experience. A lot of people would think like, oh, him as an author, there's going to be something within that. And I find that just being an author and self-publishing being rewarding in itself. I mean, this is something that I dreamt of as a kid. I always wanted to be a writer when I grew up. It just took a little while for me to get to that position. But here I am, late 40s, happy doing what I'm doing. But I'd say the biggest wow for me has been YouTube. It's just been so surprising for me in many regards. Like there was so much that I didn't know going into it. And now that I'm in the thick of it, it's pretty incredible. And it's also hard to explain to someone who's outside of this whole sphere that they aren't used to doing video content creation or even making a living on YouTube. So I've got amazingly two businesses that could sustain me. If I stop being a writer, well, I could be a full-time video creator if I wanted to. If I stop being a video creator, I can become a full-time author. Instead, I just go ahead and do both of them and I just try to manage them without crying every day.
I can relate to that too. As much of our audience can, because I know a lot of us writers in the AuthorTube community are also doing YouTube channels. And how do you balance it all? How? I'm going to ask you that question. How do you balance it all?
I don't know. Let me get back to you later on that.
Fair.
I would say the biggest thing with me, and a lot of people see why I'm so productive. One thing is I am diagnosed with ADHD, have been for a number of decades now. And one of the things I know where my wheelhouse is organization. So I have to have a to-do list. I have to have my schedule laid out for me. I have to set alarms. Yeah, believe it or not, about 5 minutes before you and I were going to meet up, I had an alarm that went off. I was stuffing my face with pancakes, so I was like, quicker! Oh! And so I get those alarms that will go off on a regular basis. And those three things are the glue that holds me together. And it's also the thing that I can step back. I look at my output. Okay, what was I able to accomplish from my to-do list? And by the way, my goals fall underneath the to-do list as well. What have I accomplished so far? What didn't I accomplish? And how can I better adjust my workload so that way I am more efficient and I am putting out better volume, higher quality content. And of course, bringing in more revenue for less of the effort. Because everybody would like to think, hey, look, work smarter, not harder. And I 1000% agree, especially now that I'm well over a decade into this. I'm trying to work a lot smarter because no one likes to work 100 hours per week. No one. Like, and I make no exaggeration, there has been instances of like a crazy amount of hours and very little sleep. And it's okay when you're paying your dues and you're coming into this business and a little younger, but now I'm getting towards the latter portion of my years.
And you've earned the right at this point. I call that ETR. It's the earn the right phase.
I love it. I'm running with that.
So books have the power to change us. What's one book besides your own, and you've mentioned a couple,
Yeah.
and it could be any one of those, that's fine, that has deeply impacted you?
This is going to sound really bizarre, and a lot of people might assume that I will point out maybe a fiction book or maybe even a book about self-publishing or writing or something. And all of those have their merit. But I think the one book that deeply affected me on a near cellular level was Have a Nice Day, A Tale of Blood and Sweat Socks by Mick Foley. Now, Mick Foley was known as Mankind in the WWF at the time, now WWE. It is a true Rocky story. When you read this, it is an autobiography, but he was so magnificent in how he told that story. I read the book 4 times. I make no exaggeration. I was a grown adult man reading a book 4 times because I liked it so much. And it was just so it's great. It's one of those ones that he just hooks you so good at the beginning. And then by the time the end comes along, you almost feel teary-eyed. You're like, you feel proud of this guy. And but yes, Have a Nice Day, Tale of Blood and Sweat Socks. Love that book. And to this day, it is my absolute favorite.
That sounds great. I think I'll pick it up. That sounds really good. So, what's one piece of advice you'd give to aspiring writers who hope to follow in your footsteps?
Well, the same advice I took from Stephen King. Write a lot, read a lot. And if you're not sure if you're writing enough and you're not reading enough, then you're probably not writing enough and reading enough. So I try to make it my mission to make sure that I am writing plenty and I'm also matching that with an equal amount of reading, and I'm not spending all day watching Netflix. I can do that, I can turn on YouTube and 12 hours later it's gone. Like, I could have at least spent half that time reading and writing, and it would
Oh,
have
and
been
the
so much
amount of
better.
guilt. I mean, the amount of guilt of knowing what I could have done versus what I decided to do. Yeah, Netflix and chill. Bad.
No argument.
So, what's next for you? Can you give us a sneak peek at any exciting projects or books in the works?
Well, this is right now. I just launched book 7 this past Saturday. Really happy. It made the top 8,000 books on all of Amazon store. Real pumped about that one. So I guess here's the funny part. I was petrified because I was launching a book that says bestseller book launch plan. Wouldn't it be ironic if it just flopped big time? Like, people would probably be like, yeah, he's full of crap. I knew that wasn't going to be an issue, but that is book 7 of a 12-book series. And I do plan on rolling out another book every month all the way up to August. And then I'll have a big, massive Kickstarter campaign that I'm going to be rolling out special editions of the entire 12-book series through. We're going to have sprayed edges. We're going to have foiling on the cover. It's going to be hardback. And it's also going to be in a physical box set. That's going to be my biggest plans right now. Beyond that, there's some stuff, and unfortunately, because I sign NDAs with different companies, I can't share that, but I can share at least what I'm working on, right?
Absolutely. And I understand the NDAs because I'm still in the acting business. They don't let you talk.
Yep.
I get it.
If you want work, of course, you
We're
can
gonna
always
put all
talk,
the
but
links of everything you've mentioned in the show notes in the description box below. I will be backing your Kickstarter for sure because I want foil covers and edges for sure, definitely. So here's some bonus fun questions. If you had to describe your writing style in 3 words, what would it be?
flow of thought.
Ooh, I like that. Very nice. And your writing fuel, coffee, tea, or something stronger?
Water.
Nice. And if you could magically live inside any world for a day, fictional or non-fictional, which would it be?
You didn't even have to get the question out. I already knew. Dark Tower. The Dark Tower series by Stephen King. Oh, yes. It's scary as heck, and I would love to be there.
Oh my gosh, so scary. I've seen that. That is so wonderful. Thank you so much, Dale, for being here. I appreciate you. Would you like to leave our guest or audience with anything before I let you go?
No, this has been fantastic. You've been an awesome host. I was going to say, you've been an awesome guest. Thank you so much for coming to my podcast, Rita. I appreciate it.
I'm glad to be here.
I started to flip the script here on you. I'm so used to doing the interviews that now I'm being interviewed. I'm like, and let's go ahead and close out the show. Special thanks to our sponsors today, Rita Slanina, for coming on in. We appreciate it. No, thank you so much for giving me the time and a few good laughs. You've been awesome. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. So have you. Thank you so much for being here. For more information, links will be in the description below and also in the show notes on the podcast. If you like this interview, please like, comment, subscribe, and don't forget to share the video.